today we're going to be finishing our series on the joy of giving. And I think I can speak for Pastor Stephen when I say that our prayer really has been over these past few weeks that it's been clear to you that we care more about your relationship with God than we do about your money. And I know that as soon as I say, hey, we're going to be talking about money, a lot of you guys are immediately going to check out because you're going to say, oh, Greg just wants to talk about money so that I'll give more so that he can get a raise. But not to worry, I'm a youth pastor. I don't get raises. So you know that my motives are entirely altruistic, like I have your best interest in mind. And seriously, our prayer, our desire throughout this series has been that you have seen that we care more about your relationship with God than we do about your money. That being said, I hope you also see the truth that the way you spend your money is a reflection of your relationship with God. So if you want to be a generous and abundant giver, which I believe God has created us all to be, why? Because we're made in the image of God, and God is a generous and abundant giver. Amen? Oh, come on now. It's going to be a long sermon. God has created us to be generous and abundant givers because He is. He's created us to be like Him and to be with Him. And over the past few weeks, we've been taking a look at these two different cycles. One cycle is based on fear. The other cycle is based on faith. The first cycle is that we earn, we work, we hustle, we go to our jobs, and we work hard so that we can do what? So that we can enjoy the fruits of our labor and consume. That's not inherently a bad thing, right? Enjoy the fruits of your labor. But the problem is that we earn and we work so that we can spend, and we find ourselves consuming to the point where we lack. And no doubt that is the motivation that is going to wake you up tomorrow morning to go to work, assuming your office is still open. In a cycle we find ourselves looping over and over and over again. It's based on fear that there's not going to be enough. But we've been looking at this alternative cycle that hopefully has been clearly communicated, that everything that we have is a result of God giving it to us. And so out of an abundance of joy from our hearts and out of a love for God, after God gives, we give just a small portion of what is God's back to God, and as a result we get to watch as He grows it. And one of these cycles is based on fear, the other cycle is based on faith. And if we want to find ourselves living in a cycle based on faith, and you want to be a generous and abundant giver, which I challenge you to be this morning, not so that CBC can have more money, not so that Greg can get a raise, again, it's probably not going to happen, but so that you can grow in your relationship with God. If you want to be a generous and abundant giver, I believe there's three ways that we're going to look at this morning on how it is that we should give. The first way is we're called to give spontaneously. Every day, God gives you opportunities to give. But unfortunately, so often we miss those opportunities because we're either not prepared or we're just not looking for those opportunities. Jesus is telling a parable in Luke chapter 10, and it's a famous story. You've most likely heard it, where He's telling the story of a man who's journeying from one town to another, and as he's going on his way, he's beaten, he's robbed, he's thrown into a ditch, and he's left for dead. And so he's laying in this ditch, beaten and bloodied, and people, good people, that you would think, oh, surely they'll stop, surely they'll do something. That's the modern day equivalent of the pastor walking by. The modern day equivalent of that person who volunteers all their time at a nonprofit charity walks by, and they just walk past this person who's beaten, bloodied, and left for dead in a ditch. But in Luke chapter 10, verse 33, we read this: "But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. He went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he sat him on his own animal and brought him to an inn and took care of him. And the next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, 'Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay when I come back.'" It's important to note here that in this story, Jews and Samaritans hated each other. That Jews thought that Samaritans were impure, that they were perversing their faith, and that Samaritans thought that Jews were cold-hearted elitists. This isn't the story of someone just finding someone in need of help and doing a good deed. This is the story of someone who had been told for generations by his father, by his grandfather, by his grandfather's grandfather that, hey, we hate those people. They don't like us, and we don't like them. Imagine if you walked up on someone you hated. Obviously, none of y'all hate anybody because you're good Christians. But imagine if you did have someone that you hated, right? And you walked up on someone that you hated lying beaten, bloodied, and left for dead in a ditch. It might be pretty easy all of a sudden to come up with excuses why you shouldn't do something. Well, I don't want to help them. They were pretty bad. They probably ran with the wrong crowd and they got what was coming to them. They deserve it. Maybe if I do something, maybe it's a trick and they're trying to play a trick on me. Or maybe they're just waiting to take advantage of me somehow. I remember 4 or 5 years ago, I was in a band and we had the opportunity to play concerts all over the country. And one day we were coming home from Houston. And if you know anything about playing concerts, they end really late. And so we're driving home. It's 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And we're driving home. And I remember Google says, hey, if you take this route to get home, you'll get home just a little bit faster. And I'm a millennial, so Google is right. So we reroute. And so we're taking this little back road, and I'm not sure exactly where we are, but Google knows best, so here we are at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and I'm just staring out the window as we're driving home, and I see on the side of the road a dead body. Yeah. And so 17, 18 years old, I'm freaking out, rightly so, right? And I'm like, stop the car, we have to do something. There's a body on the side of the road. And so we stop the car, and myself and one of my bandmates, we start walking up to this seemingly dead body in the ditch, and the other 2 of my bandmates are sitting right behind the car door, like with 911 on speed dial, ready to go, just in case something goes down. And we walk up to this body, and we're like, hey, buddy, are you okay? And he wakes up, and I may or may not have peed my pants a little bit. I didn't, but I sure felt like it. And so we're like, hey, are you okay? You all right, man? He's like, yeah, I'm fine. I was walking home and I passed out and I live right over there. And we're like, okay, do you need help getting home? It's like, yeah. And so we walk him to the front of his neighborhood and he's like, I got it from here. We're like, okay, have a good night. And we go home. And that was my Good Samaritan moment. And it was really, really freaky. And here's the thing. At 17, 18 years old, finding a seemingly dead body on the side of the road, it would have been really easy to come up with excuses why not to help. And I had to tell my mom this story beforehand, because otherwise she'd have smacked me. It would have been real easy to come up with excuses why not to step up, why not to do something. I think that a lot of us, we don't look for opportunities. And even if we see the opportunity, we come up with excuses of reasons not to give, not to help, not to step up, not to do something, rather than asking this, God, what do you want me to do? Your responsibility is not to meet every need. And your responsibility definitely isn't to make sure that that person is worthy of your help. Your responsibility is simply this. Your responsibility is to give as God leads, as generously as He gives to you. So the question that I have for you this morning, church, is, are you looking for opportunities that God is giving? Do you have your head peeking out the side of the window looking for passersby? And are you prepared to give as He leads? When you see that opportunity arrive, are you ready to say, stop the car, we've got to do something? And so when the opportunity arises, are you ready to give? And it may be money. Look, obviously, this sermon series is heavily focused on your finances and why it is that we believe that your finances tie into and play an important role in your relationship with God. But every single sermon series, we put out one of these little books. They're called 4G Guides. And with this book, our goal is to help you in 4 aspects of your faith. We want to help you in your God time. That's why each and every one of these books has a daily personal devotional. That way you can grow in your relationship with God. Each and every one of these books has a group guide so that you can meet with people in your home, at a Starbucks, at this church, and talk about what it is that you're learning in 3rd, our gathering time. That's this. You're here. Hello. But the fourth G stands for giving, because we believe that once you have read this, once you have spent time with God, once you have met with your group, once you have come to our gathering time, that you should then give what it is that you've learned to somebody else. And so when you're trying to give spontaneously, it may mean giving of your finances, but maybe it means giving a kind word to someone who needs to hear it. Maybe it means involving yourself in somebody's life. Maybe it means giving somebody some godly wisdom that really needs to hear it right now. Whatever it is, and however it is that God is leading you to give spontaneously, are you looking for those opportunities? And when those opportunities arise, are you ready to say, stop the car, we've got to do something? But we don't just give spontaneously, we also give strategically. Strategically. I hear people say, man, I wish I could give. Or I wish I could give just a little bit more. You can. It may take some planning, and it may start with just the smallest of steps, but read with me in Isaiah chapter 32. In verse 8, we read this, "But he who is noble plans noble things, and on noble things he stands." Listen, do you want a life that matters? Do you want a noble life as you pursue God and as you pursue the things that he has for you? Well, then the first thing you have to do if you want to give strategically is you have to start planning. Most people plan to consume, right? That's one of those cycles. And there's nothing inherently wrong with consuming. Look, next January, I'm going on a ski trip with my wife and some friends. I'm going to consume. It's going to be great. I'm going to have fun. There's nothing wrong with that. But what if, instead of just stopping at consumption, we planned on becoming spiritual contributors? What do I mean by that? What if instead of simply coming to church and consuming, let me put it this way. Ask not what your church can do for you, but what you can do for your church. What if we planned on contributing, on giving? I understand that the biggest hindrance to this is debt. And look, I'm not going to stand here and preach at you pretending that I'm perfect. My wife is in college. I have some debt, right? But if you want to be able to give strategically, you have to start with a plan. So if you are here and you're saying, yeah, I've got some debt, we don't want to just say, hey, get rid of it and send you on your way. We want to help you. That's why, not this Wednesday because it's spring break, but the following week, we're going to be launching Financial Peace University. It's a class by Dave Ramsey designed to show you how it is that you can spend a little smarter and save a little money to get out of debt so that you can start to give strategically, so that you can become a spiritual contributor, because we want to help you with that. But you don't just start with a plan, you also have to stop wasting. Like I said, please enjoy the things that you have in this life. There's nothing wrong with it. But let's get real. It's real easy to waste money on things that don't matter, isn't it? I don't go grocery shopping with my wife because I annoy her too much. But every time I go to Walmart, and especially because, they always put the candies right there at the self-checkout, right? And every time I find myself at Walmart at the self-checkout, I have to get them. I'm addicted, I confess here in front of the church. I have to get them, the 2-pack of the Reese's peanut butter cups. And not the little, tiny Reese's the peanut butter lovers cups, where they're that thick, filled with peanut butter. They're so good, and I can't stop. And every time I go to Walmart, I buy a 2-pack of those, and they cost me $1.38. But what if, instead of wasting $1.38 every time I went to the grocery store, I saved that money so that I could invest in what truly matters, in what's really important, what's going to have eternal implications? What if you cut that cable package from 1,200 channels down to 400? Because let's be honest, you're not watching the other 800 anyway. What if you maybe put off buying that new car just a year longer? Not because any of these things are bad, not because any of those things are sinful, but so that you can be strategic and invest in what truly matters. Because if we buy those $1.38 peanut butter cups every time we go to Walmart, we all of a sudden find ourselves without the resources to invest in what truly matters and invest in what's going to make a difference for someone's life for eternity. So if you want to give strategically, you don't just start with a plan. You got to stop wasting. But finally, if you want to be able to give strategically, you've got to take a step. Listen, you don't have to change. You don't have to fix everything today. But if you don't take a step today, you're going to find yourself in the same spot tomorrow that you were in today. If you say, I want to make a difference, I want to become a spiritual contributor, you have to start. What's that saying? The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So are you willing to take a step? Are you willing to make a step towards investing in what matters? I think that we're called to give strategically, but we're also called to give sacrificially. In Mark chapter 12, verse 41, we read this, and he being Jesus, and he sat down opposite the treasury and watched the people putting money into the offering box. Many rich people put in large sums, and a poor widow came and put in 2 small copper coins, which make a penny. And he called his disciple to him and said to them, truly I say to you, this poor widow has put in more than all of those who are contributing to the offering box. For they contributed out of their abundance, but she, out of her poverty, has put in everything she had, all that she had to live on. So Jesus is in the temple, right? Modern example. Jesus is at church. And the offering plate starts to go around. And as it goes around, people would drop in money. Why? Because as you drop more and more money in, it makes more and more noise as you clank it around. And so people are thinking, wow, this guy's putting in tons of money. He must be really holy. He must really love God. He must be a super great Christian. And so as it's going around, people are making all sorts of noise, trying to drop in more and more money so that people will notice them, so that people will think that they're holy, that they are good people. And the offering plate's going around, and it's going around, and it's going around, and it reaches the back row where this poor widow was sitting because she was a good Baptist. And it reaches the back row, and she comes up with 2 small copper coins, which total 1 penny. You know why it is that we don't have the half penny here in America? Because it's worthless. This woman shows up with 2 small copper coins, which make 1 penny. She drops it in, and many of us would say, it doesn't matter. It's nothing. It's not even significant or important to drop in those 2 small copper coins. But listen, it wasn't nothing, because it was everything to her. Jesus isn't looking for you to give a dollar amount. He's looking for obedience. Say that again. Jesus isn't looking for an amount. He's looking for obedience. And it's not so that you'll suffer. It's because he wants to bless you. Let me show my dependency on God. Listen, I'll be honest with you that offering was always something that I struggled with. I was never very good at it, and I didn't honestly even give consistently to any church for a very, very long time. And it wasn't until I taught a sermon series to our students on Wednesday night about the importance of offering and how it is that ties into your relationship with God that I really became convicted and said, I need to start giving consistently on a regular basis because I need to show God that I depend on Him. And so we started to give, and then it came time where my wife and I were looking at buying a house, and it was our first house. And if you've ever purchased a house, you know that it's always more expensive than they say it's going to be. All right? Yeah, okay, thank you. You're making me feel a little better. And so we're going to buy the house, and the bank account starts dropping lower and lower. This inspection coming up, that inspection, you got to pay for this, you got this closing cost, this realtor fee, the bank account gets lower and lower. And I got to be honest with you guys, it was really, really, really tempting to just stop giving. Well, instead of giving that money to God, I could use that money to cover this inspection or to cover that realtor fee. But nevertheless, my wife and I maintained faithfulness, and we tithed all the way through the entire process, and I'm happy to say that this past December we celebrated 1 year in our house. Now, yeah. And listen, I'm not saying that to say that, oh, if you give $100, God is going to give you $1,000. But I truly believe that it was because of our obedience to God in the midst of a struggle that God blessed us with the ability to purchase this house. I truly, truly believe that. And again, I'm not saying, and I can't promise you, that if you give it $10, God's going to give you $100. But what I can promise you is that God blesses abundant givers. We looked at this passage last week, but I want to challenge you to remember that, listen to this, no one outgives God. No one. He issues this challenge himself here in Malachi chapter 3, verse 10. Bring the full tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. And thereby, listen to this, put me to the test, says the Lord of hosts, if I will not open the windows of heaven for you and pour down for you a blessing until there is no more need. Can't say if you give God $100, you're all of a sudden going to be able to afford that house or drop by the dealership and be able to pick up that new Camaro you've been eyeballing. But God issues this test himself. He says, if you're going to be faithful to me, I'll bless you. Have you considered for a minute how many blessings you might be missing out on, though, because you don't trust God? That if you're here today and you'd call yourself a Christian, you say, yeah, I believe in God. I believe in the God that hung every star in the sky, that knows the number of hairs on my head, the God that would love me so much that he would send his own son to die a bloody death on a cross to pay for my sins, my mistakes, all the dumb things that I would one day do. I believe in that God. I believe that that God is big enough to conquer death and to pay for my sins. But God's not big enough to cover my expenses. That we would say, yeah, I trust God with my soul, but not with my money. Or maybe even worse, maybe you say, yeah, God, thanks for all that forgiveness stuff. Really appreciate it. But I got it from here. I don't need your blessings, God. I'll take care of it. I don't need it. How many blessings have we missed out on? Because while we would say that God is big enough to forgive, he is not big enough to provide. Or how many blessings have we missed out on because we'd say that God is big enough to forgive and I got it from here, thanks. God's promised to meet all of our needs. And while he promises to meet all of our needs, it goes beyond just money, beyond just finances. God also gives us faith. We get to watch as we give our 2 copper coins, which total 1 penny. And as we give, we get to see God do big things, bigger things than we could ever hope to do with those 2 small coins. God also promises that we get to see significance when we give. Every time Calvary baptizes someone, every kid that's next door being taught God's word, every student that makes a decision to come to a saving faith in Jesus Christ, when you give, you are a part of that. That's you. Because when you give sacrificially, you get to watch and invest in God's kingdom and see lives be changed and transformed because of you and because of your obedience. This morning, I'm going to challenge you to consider where God is leading you to give. Is he telling you to give spontaneously? Do you need to look for those opportunities? Give strategically. Is there some sort of step that you need to take? And give sacrificially. What's one small increase that you can make? Not so that you suffer, but so that you can show God that I depend on him and him alone to provide for me. How is God leading you to give? And for the last time in this series, now to be fair, this is the last time I'm going to preach for a while, so I can make this promise. This is the last time I will talk about money from this stage for a while. But for the last time in this series, where is God challenging you to give? Maybe you just need to start. Or maybe you need to increase a bit. Maybe you want to give to our tithes. And just say, I just need to do it. Maybe Maybe you want to start giving to our building fund. Listen, this building has a little over $300,000 left to pay on it. And we'd love to pay that building off. Why? So that we can run unencumbered towards our goal of reaching people in the Bastrop area. Could you imagine, like I said, $300,000 left to pay on this building. Could you imagine what we could do with that to reach people in this community? Maybe you need to start and consider giving to our building fund. Finally, maybe you want to start giving to missions. Our focus for this month is the Armstrong Mission Fund. And what Armstrong is every dollar that you give to the Armstrong Mission Fund goes to planting churches all across North America, giving people that maybe never would have heard the gospel an opportunity and a local church that they can go to so that you can see significance as God's kingdom expands all across America. How is God challenging you to give? Remember, God's not looking for a dollar amount. He's simply looking for you to be obedient. So I would ask that you would be obedient and simply watch as God blesses.